All right, welcome to Peeps Creek, the cafe where we serve you delightful, slightly intense, but definitely worthwhile conversations. A podcast focused on bringing people together by drinking, listening, and conversing. So grab your favorite drink and let's see what's on today's menu. All right, people, welcome to Peeps Creek, the cafe. You know that you need to grab your favorite drink, and let's get into this little conversation today. And on today's menu is episode 36. It is Murdered His Mother or Falsely Accused. Now, for those of you who don't know, the menu is the topic. Now, as I indicated on episode 34, we are finishing up on A&E's accused, guilty, or innocent. And this is actually the last episode or the last case that we're going to cover in that particular
series
documentary. Yeah. But before we do that, I told you to grab your drink, and it's important for me to let you grab a good drink here at the cafe. I am drinking on. What am I drinking on? What do you think this is? This is bourbon.
Ginger ale.
With a little sugar-free ginger ale and a little lime and a little lemon. That's what I'm drinking on. All right. In Virginia Beach, Denise, what are you drinking on?
I am actually drinking on some caramel frap, which is halfway almost done. Like, where's the camera? Right there. Oh, right there.
Lord have mercy. All right. So you're drinking on some coffee over there. Is it decaf or caffeinated?
Caffeinated.
Okay. Do you think that this particular case is going to cause us to need some caffeine?
No, but you always cause me to want some caffeine. So.
All right.
It's like that headache that don't go away, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So we are on episode 36, Murder His Mother or Falsely Accused. We are stepping into the good old state of Iowa.
Oh, now, wait. Before we start, I have a thing that I forgot what is it that you're calling it now. When you take a shot?
It's called Take a Shot.
Oh. Well, I want to take a shot.
All right, go ahead. What you want to take a shot to?
That's when I can just unleash, right?
For only a short period of time, because remember the other episode, Straight Up No Chaser, is for you could do your own episode on that. All right, Go ahead.
So I want to take a shot. I'm a little depressed right now because, I always look forward to what outfit I'm going to wear when we do these podcasts, right? And I've been waiting for more merchandise from Peeps Creek, and I haven't received it. So today I had to wear this one. So I'm a little depressed because you're back on my chest. And that is so freaking depressing. So I'm going to take a shot.
Mm-hmm. Oh. You don't have to tell the people the brand, but what are you taking a shot of? Oh, well, you already told the brand.
I guess I have to.
You don't have to. You can just say vodka.
Vodka.
All right. Because Ciroc ain't paying me. All right.
Okay. Apple
vodka over here.
Apple vodka. So this is hopefully to cheer me up from this depression that I have to wear this man on my chest. So, salud.
Salud. You want to show how much of a... Yeah, right there. There you go. Look at you. You got a new computer over there. Don't even know how to use it. Go ahead.
Go
ahead and take a shot. All right, salud. We appreciate you. We are welcome, and I am glad to be back on your chest.
So depressing.
Chest of life. That's like Superman over there. Super shine. Here we go.
Just hurry up.
It is Peeps Creek.
Oh, gosh, I'm about to go up.
All right, let's move on. All right, so we are going to go ahead and jump into this particular topic. We are in the state of Iowa. Now, I don't think, as I was stating before, I don't think I've ever been in the good old state of Iowa. I don't even think I've passed it before, but had I passed it, I just don't know. All right. What about you? Have you ever been?
Not at all.
Okay.
Pass or been there or nothing.
All right. So in Iowa. This case opens up as all the other cases open up. Let's be clear on this particular case. It is actually in 2 episodes. So episode 6 and episode 7, but we are going to take care of them in this particular episode and one. All right. So we open up in Iowa and we hear a phone call, 911, and it's a man crying, and he says, let me see if I can do this. He says, "Help! My mother's laying on the floor dead. Blood everywhere. It looks like she's been laying here for 2 hours." That's what he said, right?
I think he said he needed an ambulance, that his mom had been laying down.
I don't know if he actually said that, because there is a lot of debate from the family members, particularly when we talk about the trial, that they don't think he actually attempted to try to get her any kind of help, because he presumed that she was dead. But go ahead.
Well, that was what I was gonna say. Like, when I heard it, I was like, 2 hours? How do you even know she's been dead for 2 hours?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
And at that moment, he was guilty in my eyes.
All right. So,
however,
so the 911 call, you are an expert. You've already determined that this man is guilty. There is no and ifs or buts about it.
Who says 2 hours? Like, I don't care how in distress you are. You don't put a time frame. And you said 2 hours? Nah.
Okay, let's be fair. He's
guilty. In my eyes, he was guilty in that moment.
All right, but he is a farmer, and so that means that he, as a farmer, let me finish, that he may have dealt with some animals where he has identified from the slaughtering of these animals that blood coagulates at a certain time, and he probably saw that his mother's blood coagulated when he went in and saw her, and he presumed, based upon his experience, that it had to have been at least 2 hours. All right.
Guilty.
All right.
I did change my mind, though, but that made me think, something's not right here. Like, why would you even say that? So. All
right. So let's continue, because you already have us spending 10 hours just on the intro. And that's just the phone call. We didn't even talk about the evidence or the trial. All right. So the decedent is Shirley Gates.
Shirley Carter.
No, I thought her name is Shirley Gates, and the son name is Jason Carter.
Well, we can go ahead. I have Shirley Carter, but
okay. Well, anyway, but Jason Carter. Oh, you know what?
Jason's the wife, right?
Wait. You know why?
Because the wife is named Shirley too.
No, there's a street that I always turn on to get to Lowe's, and it's called Shirley Gate. That's why. All right.
Okay, let's apologize to the Carter family. It is Shirley.
Sorry, Shirley Carter. She's 68. She is laying on the floor. So we go in, we get to see some kind of photographs, right? Mm-hmm. She's laying on the floor. You see her feet, and she's been shot. Right. And I think what he says as the episode continues with the 911 call, that he sees a hole in the floor.
Yes.
Right. And so that's going to be pivotal, because people are going to presume, as we talk about the trial and the investigation, that, he should have known that something was going on. And the first thing he should have did was actually call 911 instead of calling his sister. But he calls his sister. All right. Now, Jason Carter, they introduce him. I don't know how old he is, but he has been accused not only by the prosecution and the lead investigator, but also by his father, by his brother and sister, of murdering his mother. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so when we open this, and feel free, because I know I get excited about these cases. So feel free to just jump in and take over.
You actually on point right now, so you're good.
Thank you, producer. Okay. So he's accused by these individuals. And what we do find out is that, for whatever reason, similar to episode 32, there are allegations that this was maybe a potential robbery, because there's things disarray, right? Things in the kitchen are thrown out all over the place. But in the bedroom, only actually 2 drawers are open and things are scattered about, right? And we find out later on that there is no evidence that the same type of thing occurred in any other place of the house, the living room, anything of that. So the two main places where there's things thrown all over the place is the kitchen, and then her room, there's two dressers, and then in the basement, there's a cabinet where there are some guns. There's still some rifles in there, I think 2 or 3, but one I think is taken, a high-powered rifle is taken, right? Now, what I don't think is made clear in this episode, either one of them, and maybe you know, was that high-powered rifle stolen, or was it just used to kill Miss Carter?
Well,
what did you understand?
The junior attorney, when she was talking, because I wrote it down exactly how she said it. So she said they have no idea if the rifle is missing, or if I'm sorry, they have no idea if the rifle is the actual murder weapon that killed her, because she was killed with the same rifle. But she did say that murder weapon was never found.
All right. So the presumption is that it was taken.
Yeah.
Right.
Or stolen.
Or stolen, which we don't know. And quite frankly, which is another baffling aspect of this. If you're going to go in and steal something, why not steal all the guns so you can sell them? And why just take one? All right. Putting that aside. So the state is charging him with murder, right?
First degree murder.
First degree murder, and in Iowa, that comes with a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Now, why is that important is that there are a lot of jurisdictions and a lot of states that do have what they call life sentences, but typically those life sentences are not for the duration of the natural life. And in some jurisdictions, life means 20 years. In some jurisdictions, life means you have to serve a certain amount and then you may be eligible for parole. But in Iowa, with first degree murder particularly, there is no option for parole. Life is life in Iowa, right? All right. Now, the prosecution's theory, as we understand, is one of two things. Either he got upset, the son, and lost his temper while he was there and killed his mom, or he planned to do this all alone. All right. Now, Denise, I've been talking for a moment, so I've set that up. That's the case that we have. We have a son who's been accused of killing his mom. He finds the mother. He calls 911. He says she's been dead for at least 2 hours based upon his evidence, his expertise. There is allegations that there is robbery, but no one has been charged with robbery. It's just the murder. There's an allegation that there was a high-powered rifle that was in the basement. That rifle is not to be found. We don't know what happened. We don't know if it was taken during the robbery, taken before. We don't know if that was the actual rifle that was used to kill Miss Carter, but we do know that she is dead, and the brother, the father, and the sister are accusing Jason of murder. All right, take us. What's the next thing that we get to?
So now they are going to take us through the timeline for Jason from the moment that he went to work until he actually found his mom. So because at this point, they're trying to see if he would have had enough time from when he was, at work, leaving work, doing whatever it is that he was doing to when he found her to be able to kind of have murdered her. So that's what they're trying to determine. So he's texts a company, I guess a company that he's working for, because like you mentioned, he's a farmer. Because he wanted them to drop some load of chemicals at his dad's house, which is where they find the mom.
Yep.
So then he takes off to the parents' home. He drives up, walks in the house. That's when he finds the mom. He claims that he shakes her right pant leg.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Mom," but he can see that there's blood around. And like you mentioned, instead of calling 911, he calls his sister. But his sister doesn't answer, right? I think, and then she calls him back.
Yeah, some they get connected. It doesn't matter. I don't think it's significant how they get connected, but yes, they get connected.
So then, so he calls the sister, tells her what's happened. The sister asks, "But did you call 911?" And he claims that no, because she's dead. So like she's dead, there's no need to call 911. This is not exactly how he said it, but this is what he said, right?
Right.
So they end up hanging up. He calls his dad. His dad doesn't answer. He calls his wife. His wife doesn't answer. And I guess I didn't really get clear if that moment is when he calls 911 or not, but I felt it was important to know the fact that you call your sister, you call your dad, you call your wife, but where in all of this are you trying to call 911?
Right. And it's not until, just so if folks go out there and try to look at the series, it's not until the second episode that we really find out that the sister calls the dad. So after she's like, why didn't you call 911? She calls the father and says, Mom is dead. And the father rushes home to see his wife. And what we understand is as he is essentially running up to the house, the son is, I guess, almost outside on the phone. And the presumption is he's either on the phone at that time calling 911 or he's on the phone talking to his wife or someone else. Right? All right. So let's just go ahead.
Didn't you find it weird when he was mentioning when the dad finally made it to the house, how he grabbed her, give her a kiss on the forehead, and was like,
the dad?
Yeah. You don't find that weird?
I found a lot of things weird in this case. But no, because when my grandmother passed away and I went to the hospital, she was already gone. And so the first thing I did was I went into the room and that's what I did. I kissed her, I hugged her, told her I love her. So I don't necessarily find that weird.
Well, I can get if the person is in the hospital, it's totally different because at that point, doctors have already declared this person dead, right?
But he knows she's dead because the sister says she's dead.
Y'all don't know if she's dead. The lady could be breathing. Who called the ambulance for the ambulance?
I mean, if you see all that blood that they saw, obviously the presumption is that they were dead.
You guilty too. Because you're presuming that lady is dead.
Now,
that they could have saved that lady's life.
Now, the father was the last person who saw the mother prior to the son, according to the facts as presented by both sides, right? Because the father dropped her off after some coffee and he went to the grain to sell grains. All of them are farmers. And it's important for people to understand that in this particular area, the son farmed and lived right here on one side of the street. And on the other side of the field, that's where the father was. So they're right there farming, where they farm. I don't think that's where they live because they live further away. But where they farm and do their business is literally next to each other, the fields. All right. So we meet Jason's attorneys. He has 3 defense attorneys that we are introduced to throughout this case. What do you think about them? I didn't get their names, and honestly, I don't think it's important to say their names, but I know you like to do that. But if you want to, that's fine. But go ahead.
No, it's fine. I felt that Allison, which was the junior attorney, is that how you referred to them? Mm-hmm. I felt that she was more passionate about trying to defend him. Mm-hmm. I think that Christine, which is the lead attorney, she was more of a at times, I don't know, at times with her, I felt like it was more of a I want to head, I don't know what the word is with the prosecutor.
Right.
Like I want to.
I think what you're trying to say is, and as if I can say it correctly, but I think I could articulate it a little better than what you're doing right now.
Oh, wow.
What I hear you say, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, is that you felt like the lead attorney was not as compassionate to Jason or his wife. And she was more focused on trying to make sure that she is there to bump heads from a legal perspective and a defensive perspective, present her case against the prosecutor. So she was more about being bullheaded or strong-willed on presenting the case versus being compassionate.
Yeah, but I mean, yes, but I still felt that she did a great job. I felt that she did an awesome job.
So one thing that I thought was important, or at least I thought was important, I said this already, was when
We're
they
not
were
trying
talking
to
about.
talk about what you think is important. We're
I
just
know,
trying to
but
present the
remember when
case
they were
here.
talking about the evidence, and the junior attorney Allison and the lead attorney and the guy, I forget his name, they were all in the room and they were talking about the 911 call, because it's not until we get into the room that we actually hear the full length of the 911 call that Jason provides. And one thing that they were talking about is the fact that it was the lead attorney said it was weird that he says 2 hours. B is that, remember, the lead investigator said there was a deposition, right, in this case. Now, we don't know if it's in this case, because usually you don't do depositions like this in criminal cases. And what I found out doing some research after this is technically, and we didn't know this, and I don't know if you know this.
I do.
There were 2 trials going on at the same time. And the civil case was filed first. And what I understand, because I went and listened to the Dateline episode, is that they decided to file the civil case in order to force the prosecutor to make a decision about bringing criminal charges against Jason, right? So the lead investigator, his name is Special Agent Ludwig, and he was very clear when he sat down, Ludwick, like anybody care. Anyway, he gave deposition testimony. And for those of you who don't know what deposition testimony is, that basically means that you are sitting, being questioned by the opposing side. It can either be an attorney or it could be someone who's representing themselves. And they are asking you questions under oath as if you are actually at the trial. It can be used for various purposes. It could be used to try to get rid of a case in a civil case, particularly by motion. It could be used also in a criminal case. And so you are expected to answer questions truthfully, honestly, and it could be used against you at the trial when you are live testifying before a jury. And then someone comes back and say, well, at your deposition, didn't you say X, Y, and Z? Okay. So that's what that is. But basically what Ludwig said is that, every time I listened to this 911 call, I chuckled. And I chuckled at the fact that how poor of a job he did at acting, basically.
Yeah, but what he said is that he chuckled every time he would hear him cry.
Right,
so every time that he would hear Jason cry on the 911 call, that would make the agent chuckle.
Right. And so the attorney, the lead attorney, is basically saying, well, yeah, he doesn't really, for someone who does not know Jason, because I've worked with Jason on this case, I can see that they probably would think that. And I don't want them to hear that and have them make a determination based upon the audio that, in fact, he is guilty, or he has something to do with it, or he was pretending that those emotions were real, right? And I think that's important, because you already said that when you heard that the 911, not because of him laughing, but the 2 hours got you to say, oh, okay, this is odd. Why the hell are you talking about 2 hours?
Exactly.
And that was brought up in their discussion. The defense attorney's discussions about the case is, why would you say 2 hours? That is weird. But people do strange things when they are in the situation of trauma and things of that nature.
And nervous, or whatever the case is.
Right. And quite frankly, there's no scientific evidence there's no kind of science that will be able to tell you that a person is not in distress or what have you. That's one of the reasons that in legal cases that a lie detector is not permitted, is impermissible evidence and
I didn't know
cases. That. Yeah, you can't present that because they're not scientifically proven. Now, investigators, police officers use it all the time to substantiate their investigatory beliefs or for probable cause and things of that nature, but it's not admissible evidence. All right. So what we find out as we go on is that the prosecution comes up with this theory, and that theory is that um, Jason and his wife were experienced financial issues, right? Because the wife died on the 19th. And at the time on the 19th, what we find out is their checking account particularly had $83 in it, right?
Oh, I didn't know they were that specific, but yeah.
Yeah, 83. Remember when Allison goes and talks to the wife and brings the documents and the bill, she says, okay, on the 19th, you had $83 in your account.
I had written less than 100, but it's fine.
Yeah, $83. And so the suggestion is that he wanted to get rid of his wife, his mother,
Mom.
so he can get access to some funds. And we don't know if that's a life insurance or if that is something dealing with the farming business that they have or the farm itself. We don't know. They don't really specify one way or the other about a life insurance policy. Okay. So that is that. So we go and Allison goes and meets with the wife to try to figure out, and the husband to figure out, okay, you had $83 in your account. How can you survive on $83? What's your explanation? So what do they say, Denise?
So the wife says, I have a $20,000 line of credit that's connected to the account. I have credit cards. She had a $10,000 credit card that at that time of the murder had a zero balance.
Yep.
And then they had something else.
Grain.
That they could have gotten cash for if they sold it or something.
And the amount of what?
Oh, that I didn't write.
That was in the amount of $145,000. So you had $10,000 credit limit on a credit card. You had a $20,000 line of credit. Now, we don't know if they had a zero balance on the line of credit or not. And then you had $145,000 of grain that she could have sold, according to her, if she needed it and if she wanted to. And one of the reasons that the $83 was there on the 19th is that they said that she gets paid on the 20th. And so her check hits the account on the 20th and only her account goes into the checking account.
Yeah.
Yes. And the attorneys basically said is that they've talked to other farmers, and the farmers indicated that that's typical for farmers. That's just the way it is. All right. So what did you think about that? Did you think that was a sufficient explanation from the family about the income?
I think it was. Allison was very clear in telling her, don't mention the credit cards because technically that's not cash.
She didn't say don't mention it. She said don't lead with.
Right. Don't lead with the credit card. But I felt that it was a truthful answer. You know, like it happens.
Yeah.
At the time you have a certain balance because you're waiting for that check. When you live paycheck to paycheck, that's how it is. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that is commonplace for certain communities, certain income levels. So I don't think anything is odd about that. It's just odd.
When it happens that,
yes, that, you know, it was 83 and then the next day they probably would stand to gain something, right? Yeah. But even then it was, I'm not sure that line of thinking from the prosecution actually matters because the husband is still there. If anyone is going to gain immediately, more likely than not, it would be the husband, not the son. Right. Unless the son had some kind of independent policy on the mom. So that didn't really sway me one way or the other. I just think the prosecution were grasping for straws on that issue. Now, we find out that the lead detective, Ludwig, Special Agent Ludwig, pretty much from the beginning thought the son did it. Right? Okay. And so we find out that the son is maybe like 2 days after, within 72 hours of, that is what I hear, within 72 hours of the crime, the son is automatically the main suspect and he's brought in for questioning, right?
Well, prior to him being brought into questioning, Ludwig goes to his home.
He does, to talk to him. Right. And they find out that there's what?
A cell phone that he didn't mention, a second cell phone that he had not mentioned to them. And
why didn't he mention this? Well, first of all, what is the purpose? What did we find out the purpose of the second cell phone is?
Well, he was having an affair. That was his way of communicating with his side chick.
Right. So he had a second phone so that he could communicate with someone who he was in relations with, that he was having an affair with for about a year is what we find out from him. And so we hear that he's brought in for questioning, right? One thing that they do make clear is that he is in being questioned by the police for 11 hours, right? So the defense makes sure that they bring that out when they're discussing. What did you think about that? Did you think when you heard that someone is under questioning for 11 hours, was that any concern for you?
Yeah, because, and this is just my opinion, when a person is being held in for so long and you keep on drilling and drilling, because we've watched these crime shows to know that they're going to keep on drilling you and saying you did it, and they're going to keep on inferring that you did, and just so you could get out of there because you're just tired of being there for so long, you're going to tend to implicate yourself one way or the other.
Right.
So
And
that kind of concerned me a little.
yeah, because the thought process is that technically a person is agreeing or saying that they committed a crime under duress, right? But there's nothing illegal about officers keeping you that long. Now, here's the thing that this particular series did not bring to light. On the Dateline series, when they were doing, because Dateline did both the civil and the criminal together, so you knew that there was two cases going on at the same time. We didn't know that just looking at A&E. But what the evidence showed on that particular stance from the prosecution was that he was free to go, but Jason wanted to stay there longer to convince the officers that he didn't do it. So that was the presentation of the evidence on another episode from a different television channel, right? Yeah. So we hear this, right? But what we don't hear on either television special is that he says, I did it. He was clear, I didn't do it. There was a lot of debate about him having this affair. Why didn't you tell people? He was screaming on there. No one asked me that question. Had they asked me about a phone, I would have told them. What did you think about that? Did you agree with that?
I
agree,
think it was because when Ludwig went to the home, he brought him outside and he was like, you lied to us. And so Jason is like, about what? And he's like, about your girlfriend, about the affair. And so he says, nobody asked me about that. And so he keeps telling him, you lied, you tampered with it already. But I agree, like, we're talking about my mom's murder. We're not talking about me
sleeping with someone.
I don't feel like I have to tell you that, one, I'm having an affair, because I don't want my wife to find out the reason why I have a second phone. And I wouldn't have thought that second phone would have been important for the case.
Right.
Because again, we're trying to solve my mother's murder, not anything related to me.
Exactly.
So yeah. I agreed with him.
Yeah. I felt it was a cheap shot from the investigators, but what we find out is that piece of evidence, not the fact that he had a second phone, the fact that he had an affair is important throughout this case, at least from the investigation that the police officers conduct. And why? Well, before we get to that, how did the wife even find out about the affair?
So they had him in a separate room, and I guess the family were at the police station as well, and they had them in a separate room. And so Ludwig, or one of the
it was Ludwig,
told her that he was having the affair.
Told her that she was having an affair while she was actually trying to figure out if she can communicate with Jason about the funeral arrangements for his mom. And basically, the officer basically says, "Oh, by the way, your husband is fucking somebody else."
Yeah, he's having an affair.
I thought that was shitty.
Well, I think Ludwig was shitty from day one, but
right. All right. So, why I say that piece of evidence was important is because Ludwig essentially went. I'm going to use this term, Denise. You might disagree with me. I basically think he basically went on a campaign to convince the family members that because he was having an affair, he killed his mom because his mom would be upset that he had an affair and probably would disclose that to his wife. So he shot his mom dead, A, to shut her up about this affair. And so he told the father about the affair. He told the sister about the affair. And the sister was like, because I thought this was very important. When Ludwig was asking the sister questions, I don't know if you caught this, one of the first things she said is, what does he stand to gain by killing mom? Mm-hmm. Right? So automatically that tells me there was no money tied up with Jason. Because if that was the case, if there was an insurance policy, or if there was something, a will that says that when I die, it's going to go to X, Y, and Z, and Jason's name, we would have heard that. That would have been pivotal evidence, because that would help substantiate a motive, right? Motive for the murder. But we don't hear any of that at all. We hear about the $83 in the checking account. And so then we do a whole leap of faith and jump 30 grounds from a reasonable perspective to say that he killed her because of money. And now we're circling back around to the fact that he killed her, quote unquote, allegedly, because he wanted to silence her about the affair. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that he took that as his weapon to cast doubt, especially on the family, because he kept telling the sister, because we don't get to hear his questioning or any conversation between Ludwig and the father. We hear it between Ludwig and the sister. And
he cuts that off, though, at some point. Remember, he stopped recording the conversation with the sister, but go ahead.
I didn't even pay attention to that, honestly. Mm-hmm. But what I gathered from him talking to her is the fact that nobody knew about this affair, so he lied. He lied to you. So if he's lying to you, he could be guilty of this murder. You know, I felt like that's what he kept trying to like push for her to believe, to the point where she started believing, well, maybe it was him. You know, like maybe he did it.
And so, and this is one of these points that people need to listen to, because it's important. And I'm not giving legal advice. Nothing I say on this podcast is legal advice. Even though I'm a lawyer, I don't represent you. I'm not giving any kind of legal advice. Now, one reason that a lot of attorneys don't like to put their clients on the stand is for this very reason. It's because even though there may not be a logical connection from one lie to the issue at hand. So in this case, him lying to his wife, basically, right? Deceiving his wife about his faithfulness, him going out and having an affair doesn't logically connect to the fact that he killed his mom, right? If you just heard those two things without anything else, you would not, I don't think one reasonable person will automatically assume that he killed them, right? Killed the mom. But if you lie once, right, the likelihood is that you will what? Lie again. And so if you, for instance, if you have a felony, right? One thing that if you look into the rules of evidence, the federal rules of evidence in a lot of states actually follow them. And what that means is rules of evidence is how you present evidence to a court. There are certain things that you have to do. There are certain things that can stay out of court, certain evidence, because it doesn't follow within the rules of evidence. And so one of those is that if you have a felony, you can use that against that person who is testifying, right? And so the fact that you have a felony already tells me, as a person who don't know you, that what?
You're guilty.
Or you're more likely than not to have done this crime, or more likely than not to be involved with criminal behavior, right? So you do these things to impeach the credibility of a witness or of your client. That's how the other side would do it, to impeach the credibility of your client. So that's why a lot of people, particularly lawyers who are specific, especially in the criminal world, don't like putting on their clients. And I'll give you a very stupid example, but it's something that is used a lot of times. When I give a deposition and I take someone's deposition and someone says, well, I've never cursed. I've never cursed. I don't curse in my household. What they don't know is I've already talked to folks. I've already talked to your son, your daughter, and your mama too. And she already told me you curse like a sailor. right? So I'm going to bring that up and say, you say you never curse because he used the word never. That implies that you won't use it under any circumstances. And so you use little bits and pieces like that to impeach the credibility of a witness. And they do these little small things all the time. And remember, that's what the jury are looking at, because they may see all this evidence, but a lot of these jury members go by their heart. They go by their feelings. They go by what their own intuition is telling them. Like in your situation in episode 32, you were talking about you're a witch, right? You get to know when people lie.
Yes.
So things like that happen. Sorry, that was a tangent. All right, but I think it's important to talk about.
Allison mentions it too about the inconsistencies, because it's a standard way of putting in question, a person's credibility. And I felt that they kind of, maybe not, but they use that tactic later on in trial.
Yep.
When they're questioning one of the witness, one of the people. All right. So Ludwig, after they do the questioning of the 11 hours, and he, speaks to the sister, the father, and the wife, he gets into the vehicle. And I don't understand why the recording is still on. I guess he had forgotten to turn it off. But
probably the body camera or whatever.
He gets into the vehicle with another officer, and the officer, you can hear the officer asking him, so what happened today? I missed all of it. And so Ludwig starts saying, well, eventually Billy, and so the officer cuts him off and says, is on board. And then Ludwig replies back and says, he's on board. But our biggest concern now, I'm about to tell you, our biggest concern now is that he can flip a couple of times. So as Ludwig tries to continue, the officer says, you're not recording, are you? And then you hear click, and it's cut off.
Okay, but who is Billy?
Billy is the brother, the oldest brother of Jason.
Ah, yeah. He was based, so that's going back in line that he was doing this recruiting of the family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You missed that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe because I didn't think, I saw the pattern with Ludwig, so I presume he did that with all the family members.
When I heard that, I was like, okay, Jason is no longer guilty. Billy is.
Well, I don't know if that means that. I think it just means that.
That's my opinion. And I'm telling you how I felt.
All right.
2 hours was it for me, and this is Billy is involved.
All right. So anyhow, we go through this, and they find out that in order for him to get from the location that he was at to his mother's house on the day in question, it would be about a 40-something minute drive, which would leave him about 14 minutes to commit the crime. But at trial, we hear that the 14 minutes to commit the crime is dwindled down to only 10 minutes, right?
Right.
So he has 10 minutes to go in, throw things away, shoot his mama, go outside, come back in, and act like he finds her and shakes her right leg, right? And then call the police. All right. Now, we go through all this, and we find out that there is a plea deal. Okay, so as we go through this, the prosecution offers Jason a plea deal. That plea deal is, do you remember what that plea deal was?
Voluntary manslaughter, 10-year sentence with a 3 to 5 years served, and Alfred
plea. Yeah. Now, I don't think he necessarily. I don't think the plea deals said 3 to 5 years served. That's the lawyer.
That's just the lawyer who said
that was the lawyer who was telling him that my experience is that from between 3 to 5 years that you serve, then you'll be let out. So basically, let me just make that clear. There was a plea deal from the prosecution saying, here, plea to voluntary manslaughter that counts for 10 years. His lawyer says that based upon my experience with this type of plea deal, that it will give you about 3 to 5 years that you have to be in jail, and then you'll be let out. Now, part of this is that they said that you can do this as an Alfred plea, okay? So all that means is this. That means on some plea deals, you plead guilty to this, right? If I'm offering you manslaughter, you're pleading guilty to manslaughter. If I'm charging you with first-degree murder, and then I give you a plea deal to say second-degree murder, you have pled guilty to say I committed the crime second degree. Alfred plea is different. Alfred plea says this: you're not pleading one way or the other. You're not pleading guilty to anything. But what you are saying is that there is enough evidence that if I go to court, that more likely than not, I could be guilty, right? And so as a saving grace, I'm agreeing to take my chances and decide to do X, Y, and Z. That's all it means, right? But from the effect of a Alford plea, it does not remove the fact that you were found. It doesn't impact your record any better than if you were to be guilty. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm, it does.
Okay.
And I kind of felt like on all these episodes that we've watched, whenever there's a plea deal, like the lawyers kind of don't want to get involved, right? Like they want to allow the person to decide if you want to take it or not. Because I think in one of the episodes you mentioned that the lawyers can't technically tell you take it or don't take it, right?
No,
but
they
I kind
cannot.
of felt like she was pushing for it. Like she kept saying, you'll be able to see your son.
I don't think that's what she was doing. I think she was doing the right thing as a lawyer. I think what she was saying, I'm not trying to disregard your opinion.
Oh, yes,
because
I'm
not.
But, okay.
No, but I don't think that's what she was doing. What she was saying is, look, we go to trial. There's a high possibility that you can go away for life. Life in Iowa means life. There's no possibility of parole. That means you're never going to get out and see your child unless there's an appeal and we win the appeal and this, that, and the third. This is a good deal for someone who is facing the inevitable of the unknown, and that being that I could go to jail for the rest of my life and not see my two children. That's what she was saying. Now,
yeah, I don't know. I still felt that, again, I know that there's this thing where attorneys, your client is not guilty. Even if you know that your client is guilty, you have to prove that your client isn't, right?
Well,
I'm not
I'm not going to say that. I think here's what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Every person is entitled to a defense. Every person is entitled to be represented. And if there is an allegation of a crime, it is the prosecution's job to prove that crime. I, as a lawyer, may represent someone who I might think, okay, well, maybe there's a possibility something was involved, what have you. I don't know. But you navigate through that as long as you're not doing anything unethical. That's what matters. At the end of the day, everyone is entitled to be represented and entitled to have a lawyer present their case or to defend them. I'll just say that.
Well, I'm going to try to, not for this one, but later on, see if I can find what it is that I thought I had understood. But anywho.
What are you doing, cutting your nails?
I just felt that I don't know. This is just my opinion as watching it, right? By her saying that, because again, I've watched the entire series. And in those series, none of those lawyers, whenever there was a plea deal, made any type of comment. They just said, this is what the plea deal is. And they left it up to whoever was in the case to decide, do I take it or not? This is the first episode where I even hear the lawyer, the lawyer, even mention, well, if you take it, then this is what you could be serving. And you're trying to prove that he's not guilty. He's telling you that he didn't do it. Why would you even say anything? Leave it.
No, I get that. I hear what you're saying, and I think that is a well-received opinion, and I think it is a valid opinion. But I also want to be clear that every lawyer is different. The lawyer styles are different. I tend to take the perspective with my clients that I want them to make an informed decision. And in order for a person to make an informed decision, they need to know all things: the good, the bad, the ugly, the in-between, the unknown. The unknown is, bruh, you can be going to jail for the rest of your life. No matter what you might think you're not guilty. Unless Jesus come down from on high and comes to the courtroom and tell these people he ain't guilty, there's a possibility that somebody on that juror pool is going to make you guilty or convince the other jurors to make you guilty, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That is probably that is something that he needs to know. This deal says that you know, without a shadow of a doubt, unless you go in there and start becoming a criminal and then get into drugs and start killing people, without a shadow of doubt, 10 years is the maximum that you're going to serve, right? So you still be able to see your kids, you still be able to see your wife, blah, blah, blah. I think because the stakes were so high in regards to what he could end up having, that she wanted him to be clear, these are your options. And that's the way I looked at it. I didn't see her pushing one way or the other, honestly. But I do agree that out of all of the other episodes, she talked a little more about the plea deal than other folks. And to your point, someone who is not savvy enough may think that's an indication, oh, my lawyer thinks my case is weak. So I can hear that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because you I think you hit it right on. What is it? You hit the nail, whatever
the nail on the head. Because
right.
You know I'll be smart like that. Let me just tell these people. Wait, hold on. Let me just show these people.
This is where I'm about to discredit you.
Oh my God, go ahead.
No, it's not discredit you, but I think that you hit on the fact that as a lawyer, that's how you interpret it, because you understand the laws, you understand what, I don't even know how to say it, but as a lawyer, that's what you would have done. But as a person that, let's say I'm the one that's facing the crime, it's exactly what you said. I would have taken it as her telling me, your case is weak, you're gonna lose, take it. You're still gonna be able to see your kids, you're still gonna be able to do this. You know what I mean? Like, I just felt that it should have just been explained. So remember, if you take it, this is what's going to happen, and leave it up to him to decide if he wanted to do it or not.
But that was good, because I think this is important, because people, the bottom line is this, is that people come into cases as they are, right? Mm-hmm. How they think, how they're raised. What do you think the jury is doing? Same thing. These are small things that they are listening to, seeing. They're going back into their childhood. Oh, when I was a kid, I didn't do this. Or when I was this, oh, I wouldn't have done this. My parents would have never said this to me. If someone would have asked me to do this, I never would have did it. And we all come to the table with baggage. And so I just want to say I think that's important. And it's a beautiful piece of being human. But it is a travesty sometimes for the legal system, because it's not about your baggage. It's really what the evidence is supposed to show.
Right.
But that's not always the case, right? All right.
Okay, so after the plea deal, it goes up new evidence that they have, that the defense has, which is audio recordings from individuals that are saying that they can offer information to be able to solve the case. So apparently law enforcement reached out to certain individuals, local residents.
No, these people reached out to them to say, I have information about this case that I think that you need to hear.
And then that's when they went to her to actually, get information from her, and they had it on recording. On recording.
What'd she say?
She says that Joe Setlock did it with the follow wills, which is two brothers.
Okay, but wait, go back. She ain't just say that. She ain't just say he did it. She said Joe Setlock told me.
Right, told me that he did it with the
he did it.
Wills.
And why did he tell her he did it?
Because they were supposed to get some pills in the mail, which confused me, because I was like, were you supposed to be getting it in Shirley's house or where?
I think I agree. They didn't make that clear. What I gathered is that Shirley was getting pills and they wanted those pills.
Oh, and so they were trying to get those pills, and they went in the house, and she surprised them. I guess they weren't expecting her to actually be there. And so that's when one of the brothers killed her.
Yes. Shot her. They said the gun went off on accident.
Went off and shot her, yep.
And shot her, and she was still alive, and then they went into the kitchen and said, you might as well finish her, basically.
Right, and if you remember, she was shot 2 times.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So
now,
and not only that, all 3 of them got all kind of records, yes. Right? Assault, robbery, all kind of shit. I don't know if it was robbery. I know it was assault. There was something else.
Yeah, I think it was robbery too.
So all three, the Sedlick and the two brothers, have a record. It's important to note that Jason Carter does not have a record, right?
Right.
And neither did Angel Bumpus, but you know how Angel Bumpus' case ended. All right, moving on. So they all have records. The police heard this, and what did they do with this information?
Not a thing.
Not a mother friggin'. They ain't gonna talk to the Sedlicks. They ain't gonna talk to the Followers. They ain't gonna ask no one else if they knew anything about it. And if you think about it, when you heard that, did you think that was a plausible explanation as to how Miss Carter died?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
They did it. Listen, Jason is no longer guilty in my eyes. Billy is no longer a suspect in my eyes. The Followers killed her along with Joe.
Right. Okay. And so what does the defense try to do with this?
They try to make it admissible in court, like try to be able to bring it to court. So they go to, I don't know what you guys will call that.
They go to a hearing.
They go to a hearing to present to the judge the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
But the judge says that's hearsay.
Okay, yeah. So during the hearing, okay. So when I was looking at the judge, I was like, this judge is like he belong in a rock band.
I know. Like with the guitar. Like you needed to have the guitar.
Yes, that's what I wrote down in my notes. Like he's supposed to be playing guitar somewhere, not on the bench.
I thought the same thing. I was like,
he just seemed so cool. He had that gray hair, the ponytail, like just chilling in the bench, like. And he leaned back, and he was like, but that's hearsay. Okay, so hearsay. I know a lot of people hear this term, right? You hear all these folks who don't know nothing about law talking about that's hearsay. You can't be talking about that hearsay. Okay. So hearsay is a relevant thing in the courtroom, right? It is, when I talked about earlier, rules of evidence. Hearsay says this, right there, that you can't present out of court statements into the courtroom for the truth of the matter asserted. So basically, let's say that I talked to Denise. I went to the police and told them, Denise told me that she killed Bobby Blue Band.
Oh my God, Bobby.
Okay. All right. That's hearsay. That's out of court because we're not in court today, right? And I'm telling you, she did it, right? And we are in a criminal case, so I want this evidence to substantiate that Denise did the crime. In that instance, 9.9 times out of 10, it's not going to be admissible because you are trying to offer that information to prove whatever that matter that you are asserting. In this case, murder, right? The prosecution has said, we're not trying to do that at all. Right? Whether Followell and Sedlock did it, don't matter. Because that's why we're offering it. What we're offering it for is to show that this was a shoddy investigation, to show that there were leads that the investigator should have followed but didn't follow. Right. And so, if you're not offering a matter for the truth of the matter asserted, then it's technically not hearsay. Okay. So, even if it is hearsay, there are exceptions to the hearsay rule, and that's very complicated. I'm not going to go through that. But just note that just because someone said hearsay doesn't mean that it's not going to be admitted. There are exceptions to the hearsay rule, and if you are offering it for some other reason other than the truth of the matter asserted, then technically, if you look at the definition of the federal rules of evidence, and most states follow this, it's not considered hearsay. Moving on, okay, pushing that aside. So the judge basically says, I'm going to take that under advisement. Mm-hmm. Basically means I heard your arguments. I'll come back and I'll give you my ruling. Yep. He comes back. He gives his ruling. And what's his ruling? In
favor of the defense.
You can bring that.
We'll bring that in.
Bring that on in. Let's talk about it. Let's bring it on in, right? Yep. Which was a good thing for Jason, right? Because it shows that you have a lead from criminals, right? That they were involved in the crime, but you didn't do anything to investigate it because you felt that Jason was the prime suspect because you had some kind of special abilities to listen to 911 calls and determine and make a judgment, right? Which is important, which is key. And I thought that was a great part from the defense, right?
Mhm.
We get to trial. The prosecution calls the criminalist, right?
Well, before they bring that in, somebody mentioned, that this prosecutor was theatrical,
Mm-hmm.
and when he did his opening statement,
It was boring.
it wasn't boring. It was like, am I in the theater? Because it was like he was acting it out, and I'm like, oh yeah, he is theatrical. Like,
Well, because you have to think about it. Flair matters. Your ability to connect. This is the beauty of our system. The ability to connect to someone through storytelling is important. Like, y'all might call me extra all y'all want.
you are.
Okay? But there is a knack to have an ability to connect to someone through the way you talk, through the way you present, because I'm going to listen more likely than not to someone that I'm entertained by or I'm interested in than somebody who's boring. Because if you're boring, I'm looking out the window.
And I agree with you 100%. But
yeah.
I always, when we discuss these cases, I always think of myself as if I was in the jury, right? I think I've mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
And if this prosecutor would have started like that, immediately it would have turned me to shut the F up and just get to the point of what it is that we're discussing here today. Because he was just too dramatic for me. And
yeah,
that's
but
probably why I would never be called in.
You're different. Yeah, I mean, I do think that you come from a different thing, but you have to you have to think about you're sitting there for days because their case went on for 6 days, right? You're sitting there for days. You need some entertainment.
That's not the entertainment that I need, but moving on.
All right. Now, there are some folks who overdo it. Fine. But I know, whatever. Putting that aside.
Right.
So we go to the trial. They call the criminalist. Mm-hmm. The criminalist is the person who goes and makes a determination about, ballistics and whether forensics and blah, blah, blah. And what forensic or ballistic evidence do they have to tie Jason to this case?
None.
Absolutely nothing, right? No fingerprints, no ballistics, nothing, right? And he says I think the defense did a beautiful job of this, is getting him to say that in your report and sitting here today, basically, there is nothing that ties Jason Carter to this crime, right? And he tries to do the right thing by saying, well, I'm just going to read what my report basically says. It says that I don't have evidence to say that Jason did it or that Jason did not do it. Mm-hmm. Right. So that was good. Him trying to save it. Then they called the examiner. I don't know if she was the medical examiner or she was some kind of like the person who viewed the body and examined the body.
Yeah,
but
they
didn't call her a medical examiner.
No,
though.
They just said she was just the first medical person that looked at the body. That's what they said.
Yes. And so she gets on the stand, right? And at trial, she tries to say that when she saw Miss Shirley Carter, the blood was wet.
Correct. It was not dry.
It was not dry. But when she gave the report closer to the time when the crime actually occurred, right? Because she pulled up on the scene, she wrote that the blood was what?
Dry.
And she said coagulated.
Right.
Because they used that word. Basically means that the blood was clotting. Right. Means that it's been out for a while. Right. And she wrote that. And what does she try to say in regards to that? Why she wrote that?
Oh, I don't remember.
She said it was an oversight. It meant to be wet.
Because all I got out of that is, lady, you lied.
Yeah, exactly. She was trying to say it was inadvertent. Basically, it was a mistake. I meant to mean it was wet, but I put dry.
How can you do that?
Yeah, I know. There's so many things I can say in regards to that, but I'm not. All right, moving on. So they get her to say that. The prosecution calls the family. They do their testimony. There's nothing they really can say to say that Jason did the crime, right? But they get the emotional pitch. The father is on there saying, my son, I believe my son. Even though he doesn't say it, that's why he's there. The sister, the same thing. The brother, we don't hear anything about the brother at all because I think he flipped, okay? Because remember that conversation you said earlier. Then now it makes sense why the brother wasn't there. Because when it opened up, he said, my father, my sister, and my brother are accusing me, but the brother ain't show up. All right.
No. And I have a follow-up on the brother. I don't know if you read about that.
I didn't. Okay, we'll do that in a minute. All right. So then the prosecution rests. Now, why is this important? Who was one of the most important people that the defense was waiting to get on that stand?
Agent Ludwig. Even I was waiting for him.
And I thought the prosecution did a beautiful job.
Wonderful job. Me too. I was like, these
of doing
motherfuckers.
That. Because if that was me, I'd be like, bruh, you ain't getting on the stand. Okay?
I thought the same thing.
I'm good. You stay home. Okay. If you want to come to the trial, you can go and watch outside. You can go to the parking lot. You can go to Dunkin' Donuts across the street. But what I'm telling you is, you ain't coming up here on this stand. Okay. So the prosecution does that, and they rest. And so the defense is in this dilemma. Do we call Ludwig or do we not? And why is that a dilemma?
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay, let me tell you why. Okay, the dilemma is, had he been called, I know what he was, or I already know what he said because he already gave his testimony. Because if you are a direct witness, that means that the party is calling you, right? I get to sit there, hear your testimony. Then I, as the opposing side, I get to cross-examine you. But because the prosecution didn't call you, and it's their case, I don't know what you're going to say because I didn't do a deposition of you, right? This is why I know the deposition was not in the criminal case. It was in the civil case. I wasn't there. So I don't know what you're going to talk about. And so if I call you up and say that you knew about this, he could say, no, I never knew that at all whatsoever. Right? So you never know. So that was the dilemma. Do we call him without knowing what's going on or not? So they ultimately decide to do what?
Jason, actually, because she leaves it up to Jason.
It is his case. It's his case. It's his decision. He's a client.
He's like, no, you've given me all this on him. We're going to bring him in. Like, now you're trying to tell me, do we not or do we? Like, no, we're bringing him in. So they decided to bring him in.
And so, and this is, so sorry, I know I've been talking about this too long, but this is the beauty of this system, right? Because if I call him, I am now the party that is requesting you as the witness. So that means that my questioning changes typically. That means that I can't ask you those quick-witted questions. It's true, isn't it? Right? Because I'm leading you. I can't do that typically. I have to ask you an open-ended question, right?
Now everything makes sense. Now
right?
I understand why she questioned him and stopped it when she did. Because I was like, no, let's show that he lied. Like.
No, exactly. Now, there nuance though. There is something in the federal rules evidence that says that if I can convince the judge that you are an adversarial witness, then I can treat you as if I am crossing you, even though it's my direct examination, right? So we don't know any of that happened, but that's just a tidbit. That's just me being my little lawyer nerd, right?
Right.
But anyhow, that goes on. And so he gets on the trial, he gets on the stand, and she asks him all these pointed questions. She asks him about the three people. And he admits that he knew about the three people. And he admits that the three people he knew about had criminal records. Assault. Mm-hmm. Right? And an assault charge is more closely related to the potential of murder than no charge at all, which is what you trying to claim my client killed his mom. Right? So she immediately stops, as you say. And
I was like, what is going on? Like, why is she not drilling him? Like, I would have been on his ass, but now I understand why.
No. She did a perfect job. You need to understand that when you are in a trial, you need to ask the questions that you need for the presentation of your case, or if you're defending, for the purpose of your defense. Yes, I want to drill his ass, but I could drill his ass later over drinks. Okay? But
that she was going to drinks.
I'm not going to mess up my client's case because I got an ego.
Emotional,
right?
Yeah.
So she stops. Okay. The jury goes and they deliberate. How long they deliberate?
2 hours.
2 hours.
And he was nervous. Jason was really nervous because he's like, they already done?
Yep. Quick verdict normally means what in real life to people?
Guilty.
Guilty, right? The longer they deliberate, there's more likely than not that it can go either way,
Right,
right?
because it could for me, like if they're taking long, it would be like, okay, so something doubt. There's doubt about
Yeah,
something.
reasonable doubt, right?
Yeah.
And we get there, and what's the verdict, Denise?
Not guilty.
Not guilty. So he's found not guilty of murdering
His mom.
His mom. Now, I know you said you had something on the brother, but before we get there, what I found out in the civil case is that the father won. The father sued his son, and the father won that case and won how much?
10 million?
10 million. And the father said, I mean, people know he wasn't getting the money, right? They farmers. He's not getting $10 million. Yeah. But it was done for purpose. It was done for principle, right? To show that I know that you killed my wife. Is basically why he did that. But go ahead. What was the update with the brother?
He appealed it. He
did, but I didn't find out what happened with the appeal.
He lost it.
Wow. Well,
he
there you
lost
go.
the appeal. Yeah, he lost it just recently, June of 2020.
Okay, because most times you appeal in because you're saying there's not enough evidence, or you're saying there needs to be a remediature. A remediature is a legal term that basically says 10 million is too much. They need to bring it down. But go ahead.
So in July of 2020, Mr. Billy Carter, which is the brother, was arrested. You want to know why?
Killing someone.
He was charged with assault on guess who?
The father.
Yes.
Oh my God! So it might have been Billy.
Yep, it says that the police claim he knocked his father to the ground and kicked him twice on the road near the father's home, following an argument. Apparently, they got into an argument. Billy claims he tried to leave the home on foot, and the father got into the car trying to follow him. And so as the father is following him, they continue arguing. And so that's when he assaulted him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, people. That is the episode. This episode is a little longer because it was two episodes that we had to find. It was episode 36, murdered his mother or falsely accused. And we find out that the jury has determined that Jason Carter was falsely accused, but maybe Billy should have been.
Billy could have had something to do with this.
All right. Until next time, make sure that you hit us up on Facebook at Peeps Creek Cafe. You can watch the action on YouTube at Peeps Creek Podcast. You can hit us up on IG, Twitter, and TikTok at Peeps Creek. You can send us a text at 202-618-0043. You can send us an email at cafe@peepscreek.com. Make sure that you visit the website to actually sign up for that newsletter. Are you excited about the newsletter, Denise?
I am.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You're positive?
And you can also visit the website and buy us coffee.
Yeah, you can visit the website. Go ahead.
Sean or Christian coffee is perfectly fine. You can just put it on my name and it will be well received. I will shout you out on the next episode if you do. Can they leave their name?
I think so. Yeah, they can leave comments. And let me just put this on here because I forgot to do this and I'm going to update it. You can also check us out on Twitch at Peeps Creek. We do the episodes on Twitch, and I like to play video games on Twitch, so I stream on there.
And I guess this episode is coming out after Valentine's, so happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Happy Valentine's Day for those individuals who celebrate it.
Valentine's doesn't have to be about love. It could just be about friendships, about, a close friend. It could be about that. It doesn't always have to be about love.
Sound like you're just trying to get some coffee. All right. So until next time, make sure that you continue to drink, listen, and converse. And peace and Denise.
Out.
No, peace and love.
Peace out.